It took only minutes to tear down what generations had built. The village of Hallam continues to need your help. Please send donations to the Hallam Area Foundation Fund, P.O. Box 81, Hallam, Nebraska 68368.
And the award-winning sports team only on 1011.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Hallam. I'm Cerise Cole. It was 1 year ago this small Lancaster County town was wiped out by a tornado.
And I'm John Vanderford. In the next half hour, we're going to take a look back at a night forever remembered by those who experienced the awesome power of Mother Nature. We'll examine how the town and its residents have rebuilt their community.
And we'll take a glimpse into what the future holds. 1011's Kyle Fisher begins our journey tonight with a story of survival in the face of nature's fury and the long road to recovery.
This is all that was left standing in the sleepy little town of Hallam Sunday morning, May 23rd. Today, the town is slowly returning to the cozy world it left behind. And although some of the town's most recognizable buildings may be gone, the tornado's destructive power will never erase this town and its people's story.
I don't remember the noise too much, but I was scared. Now, when I felt that house move off the foundation, that scared me.
92-year-old Laura Lukart rode out the storm in a chair, in her bathtub. She says when the skies darkened and her power went out, a call from her niece probably saved her life. Fearful of being trapped below ground, Lukart bypassed the cellar and instead chose the bathroom.
When it hit, I could feel the house move off the foundation, and then a loud crash came and a tree blew into my living room, and all the rain and stuff came washing in, you know.
Then the storm passed, and Lukart says Hallam residents gathered at the bank before finally walking out of town, not to return until they walked back in almost 24 hours later.
We come over here and you couldn't get anywhere near the place. Everything's blocked off. So the first thing we did was drive to Lincoln, went to Walgreens and bought toothpaste and toothbrush and soap, and you know, you don't know where you're going to be, but you need these things.
John Dolan has lived in Hallam for over 18 years, and on the night of May 22nd, he was working in Lincoln, playing piano at a bar, watching and worrying, knowing he may never see his home again.
Sorry.
It makes you real quiet.
We're doing like
ID,
you just look
topical.
at
things and you think all your life you've worked, you've built,
kind of what we do at night, but we do one ID,
all just completely
just
gone.
one topical. But we'll do an ID first, so
we're still trying to get over it. If I close my eyes, I can still see the old place.
I know, that's
and
really
the old garage
specific.
and everything the way it was. And that's all gone.
Gotcha.
So you
do
just
you know
move
which one
on.
it is?
You just move on and do what you can do.
Yeah, that
in
one
the
card.
end, like most of the town, John returned, living in a new home and making new memories, etched in his mind like the night of May 22nd. In Hallam, Kyle Fisher, 1011 News.
An amazing amount of sweat and tears have gone into rebuilding Hallam, a town that was destroyed in seconds by a tornado that measured an F4. For more on the storm itself,
and you'll prompt that for him.
Thanks,
Scroll
Cerise.
back up a little bit so you don't cut
touchdown
that
in Hallam was
first
part of a
couple
storm
lines
cell that stretched for miles.
You can hit
Parts
next
of
item
south
if
central
you want.
Nebraska were hit
There you
first,
go.
and the cell tracked east. 1011 meteorologist Rusty Dawkins shows the path of the storm and the pure power of the tornado.
Severe weather started up at
4:44
in the afternoon, 281 miles west of Lincoln, when a tornado warning was issued for McPherson County in west central Nebraska, and they didn't stop until the last tornado warning, which was in Gage County, expired at midnight. Well before all of this started up, Steve Scher and everyone at the National Weather Service was gearing up for a busy day.
The first thing is, if people remember, it was a very humid day. We had a lot of low-level moisture available. The Gulf, we say, has been open for some time, meaning the south winds have been coming off of the Gulf of Mexico and transporting moisture up into the eastern part of Nebraska.
It's not out of the ordinary for the Midwest to see severe thunderstorms and tornadoes in May, and May 22nd of last year was shaping up to be one of those days.
Because we had a nice, strong upper air system that was providing us strong upper air winds from the southwest, and from the surface we had these southeasterly winds. That's usually when we get the tornadoes.
I have no idea.
And the tornado that will forever be known as the Hallam tornado sat down at 7:30 in the evening just west of Dakin and didn't let up until 10 after 9, just west of Palmyra. That means the tornado was on the ground for 52 miles and took an hour and 40 minutes. All the ingredients were there for tornadoes. Warm, moist air, a warm front in the area, and outflow boundaries from previous thunderstorms helped out, but there was more to the Hallam tornado.
To make tornadoes, you have to make large ones like the Hallam storm, you have to have what we call wind shear, which is a change in wind direction and speed with height. And that's especially
Heather,
critical
you can set up a tight
if those
shot of
speeds are
Mike
pretty high.
for when he gets out there.
This year, especially at the surface to 1 kilometer up, and the added feature of a low-level jet stream that had its nose in southeast Nebraska, everything really came together in Hallam.
That is the hook echo, and here we have a thing that meteorologists call a bounded weak echo region.
What did you want on camera one?
Called a B
It'll be a tight shot of Mike when he gets out there. It's like a tight shot of
indicates that
Cerise.
there's really strong updraft in the storm and very strong potential for all types of severe weather. With that hook echo, you're thinking maybe tornado, and you look at the rotation, and again, the colors are there.
What was being seen on radar as the hook echo going right over Hallam was when the tornado was at its biggest and strongest. At this moment, it was 2.5 miles wide and had an F4 classification, which means it had winds between 207 and 260 miles per hour.
And Hallam is right there, and it's right in the middle of this hook echo, which is where the tornado normally is.
On radar, it was pretty easy to see the tornado, but in person,
it was becoming nighttime,
harder
to see. And this thing was so big, it was 2.5 miles wide. It was rain wrapped and low clouds, and made it difficult for people to identify this as a tornado.
after it was all said and done, several towns had been affected in southeastern Nebraska. To name a few, Dakin, Western, Swanton, Wilbur, DeWitt, Claytonia, Cortland, Princeton, Firth, Holland, Hickman, Panama, Bennett, and Palmyra, along with numerous homes and property in rural areas. The May 22nd Hallam tornado will be in the minds of many Nebraskans for years to come. Meteorologist Rusty Dawkins, 1011 News.
In all, 5 counties were affected from the one tornado cell. One of those was Clay County.
The destructive tornado touched down south of Clay Center before moving east and hitting towns like Wilbur. 1011's Addie Knowlton reports.
The clouds were swirling overhead, and the birds, I looked outside my front window, and the birds were going back and forth and back and forth.
Imelda Kuby knew a tornado was headed her way last year. What she didn't know was that it would develop near her family's farmstead in Clay County and would eventually wipe out her home.
It went so fast, you really don't have time to think that much about anything. It was less than 60 seconds. And it was all over with.
The Kuby home today looks much different than it did a year ago. The Kubys have rebuilt and have moved on.
All the stuff that was damaged was just stuff. We were fine. Nobody was hurt, nobody was injured. All our animals and pets were fine.
I'm sorry, what did you say, Heather?
That's all
He's
that
waiting
mattered.
for a topical.
The same storm that produced tornadoes in Clay County that fateful night last May 22nd headed toward Wilbur next.
Driving up to where our house used to stand and our buildings were completely gone. It was just exactly like a war zone.
Cindy Togg says children were home when a tornado demolished their house. Cindy saw the damage the next morning.
We worked on this place for 17 years. It had been 17 years. And it just, at that time, I felt like I know what a homeless person feels like.
The Togstads have rebuilt their home with an added storm shelter. But it wasn't just the house that needed attention. Cindy's son, who survived the storm, is also recovering.
You feel so helpless when everything gets wiped out in 4 seconds of your life.
Cindy Togstad says rebuilding has helped her survive losing everything. That and leaning on friends and family.
One thing I found out to cope with it is to laugh about it. That helps a lot, to have a sense of humor about it.
And back in Clay County, Imelda Kuby says she watches the sky a little closer nowadays.
When there's warnings, I go to the basement a lot sooner than I'm used to.
And these families say they have a new respect for Mother Nature. In Clay and Gage counties, Addie Knowlton, 1011 News.
Every county in Nebraska has an emergency plan in place for events such as natural disasters. Here in Lancaster County, the job of disaster preparedness falls on the shoulders of Doug Alberg. In his own words, here's Doug Alberg talking about the days after the tornado.
very hard to believe that occurred. It's very difficult, you know, when you sit back and you think about an entire community just being wiped off the face of the earth. When I went down there, I was very amazed at the response that I saw from initial responders. The vast majority of them were from volunteer fire departments. The commitment that I saw from not only the people that were functioning down there as first responders, but also the folks that had been through a very, very traumatic experience in their life. What did I learn? It's one of those things that on the positive side, you learn how cooperative people are.
Sure, nothing too crazy will happen right away.
Sincere their efforts are to accomplish what they need to accomplish.
Tornado comes right down on
an
us.
event like what we had last year. I think that the protocols that we have in place, the hierarchy as far as
we're ready to
who
board this puppy.
responds, what their responsibilities are, hasn't
Camera's
changed.
rolling. Stand by, camera one. Mike's
We sit back and we talk about terrorism. Is Mother Nature a terrorist? Absolutely.
3, fading,
I think she's probably on the top of the list. And I think because of the various programs that we have in place, the protocols that we have in place, the procedures that we have in place, that we functioned very well last year, and I think we'll continue to function very well in the future. Hallam, I think, is taking the very, very positive steps to reestablish their community.
From Hallam, the tornadoes continue to track east, causing damage to towns like Firth and Panama.
Right in the path was Norris Schools. Buildings were crushed like tin cans, and school buses were tossed around like toys. 1011's Teresa Avila shows us how this unique community has bounced back.
It's shocking.
You never expect it to happen here. Right before the newscast.
Junior year at Norris Schools has been anything from normal
countdown's rolling. Stand by.
Camera one, Mike's mic and your music. Many seniors like Carrie Schmidt feared they wouldn't be able to finish their last year at Norris.
My mom, when she first came home, she's like, well, I think you're going to have to go to Wilbur. And I started crying. And I was like, Mom, it's my senior year. I've been here since kindergarten. I'm not going to go. And then when we finally found out that Norris was actually going to start school again, that was a relief.
The year got off to a late start.
It was fine.
First day of school wasn't until after Labor Day as construction workers raced to get the school ready. Even then, many students and teachers had to use portable classrooms.
All right, topicals next.
As every week went by, everybody could see progress, could see things were getting better and better, and that helped keep everyone's moods and keep everybody in good spirits.
Over the past year, Norris Schools underwent a major facelift.
You can help Heather
Some
tear
of these
down.
walls were crumbled down to 4 or 5 feet high.
Everything from halls to the high school and middle school gyms look different than 1 year ago. For the first 3 months of school, students and teachers had meals from a salad bar. The kitchen had to be completed for hot lunches. This is what the Norris Auditorium looked like after the tornado hit 1 year ago.
And this is what it looks like now. While the auditorium won't be finished until next school year, things are definitely looking up.
It's something you definitely only want to do once in your lifetime, and there was a challenge in front of us, and we met it.
Through all this destruction, Norris students feel this event came to a positive end.
Left a little.
I think the tornado has made everybody closer because it's like you've lost something that was important to you.
On graduation day, students were glad to close the book on memories they shared in the school together.
It was very exciting. I cried a couple times with my friend, and I sat by each other, and that was awesome.
I think it'll be a year that I always remember.
Not only because it's their final year at Norris, but also because they made it through this year stronger and together. At Norris Schools, Teresa Avila, 1011 News.
Tomorrow, Norris Schools will be holding its own Tornado Remembrance celebration. It will be going on from 12:30 to 3 p.m. at Norris Public Schools. There will be food, entertainment, and various speakers talking about the 1-year anniversary.
Countdown's rolling.
Like Norris High School, the town of Hallam has been rebuilding since the tornado. Thousands of people from Nebraska and all across the nation stepped in to volunteer manpower, support, supplies, and even money.
1011's Kate Ellingson talked to one volunteer who helps all over the country. He says the Hallam tornado was the worst damage from a tornado he's ever seen.
My house would have been right
Before
the Hallam tornado hit, Dorothy Messman's house sat in this lot. Our home was damaged beyond repair.
Did you switch it?
Dorothy was one of hundreds that were affected by last May's tornado. She says her experience would have been different without the help of volunteers.
We could not have done it without the volunteers. There is no way Hallam could come back without those volunteers.
Not like we're going anywhere.
We needed the manpower. We needed the support. We needed somebody to say, go here or go there. Most of us didn't know for probably a week which direction to even go because we'd never been through this before.
I feel so out of it today. It's not even funny.
So we needed guidance,
Fading rolling 3,
and
3's up,
they were there.
Ken Jones was one of the
6.
many volunteers, and he
3,
says it was rewarding to
6.
help families try
6
to put their lives back together.
7.
They say as a Red Cross volunteer, you'll never work longer hours or
Feel
work
like I'm going
harder
crazy.
for less pay,
Rolling 7.
but feel
7's
better
up.
about it in the heart.
Queuing
And
8.
that's why.
Ken says that even though there's a good amount of reconstruction, Hallam and surrounding areas still have a long way to go. He says he enjoyed getting to know many of the families.
We became very close to some of those folks.
Oh, God, we're going to redo that.
They were friends, and they regarded us as friends.
Sean, can we do the one without the audio
so
tag?
Grateful for what we could do, and we were so grateful that we could do it for them.
Doesn't help
They
that
were
I'm
great help.
switching
They
like a
cleaned up
freaking
yards.
turtle.
They picked up trash. They came in to see if you were okay. They would bring you a sandwich. They would stop by if you were sitting on the porch crying, and they'd talk to you. I mean, they were just always there.
I guess,
and they were wonderful.
my best advice is
Bob
make
Kelly
sure
from the
those things are
Lancaster
kinda
County
taken
Red
care of
Cross
beforehand, 'cause
says
that's
the
why we didn't get that
volunteers
camera
were the
shot in time.
backbone of rebuilding.
It would take months and months longer,
So,
and
set the
it would
shots
be
is really
increase the suffering and the pain that's involved here.
No way would Hallam be here without volunteers. We needed them all.
For Dorothy's family, rebuilding wasn't the right option for them. They moved to Crete to be closer to family, but still remained close with friends in Hallam. In Hallam, Kate Ellingson, 1011 News.
Not only did volunteers physically help, there was also a lot of money donated. The Lancaster County chapter of the American Red Cross raised around $326,000 from more than 1,600 donors. And around 100 businesses donated food, water, and supplies worth about $183,000.
3.
For many Hallam residents, losing their homes to the tornado was devastating, but Hallam residents have shown their resiliency. 1011's Mike Kronmeyer talked with one resident who believes there's a lot of good that's come from the rubble of the tornado.
A 2-story house, and they dwarfed the house. And so that's quite a bit of a difference.
Stay by 8.
You can see no trees left.
When Sue Ty's home was destroyed in the tornado, it meant nearly a year in a Lincoln apartment, while the home she and her husband had lived in since 1989 was rebuilt.
Back 3.
It's just
damn it, what a bit.
For a while because you just don't know where to start or what to do.
That is it.
You just kind of walk around like, well, now what, you know?
Sue started with Vantage Homes builder Dan Kuber, who has constructed 14 new homes in Hallam. Kuber knew his approach with customers like Sue would have to be different.
We realized that the customers needed a little extra care because they had been through quite a crisis.
That crisis has turned to triumph as Sue's been in her new home less than a week and gave the man who helped build it the very first tour.
Yeah.
Here we're seeing, oh, you know, this is so much nicer than what I had before. And you know, it kind of, even though it's sort of the silver lining deal, and so that's been kind of nice. That's been the good part.
Sure, there was a tragedy and everything, but I think as the towns come back together, they've become more close and more outgoing to each other, and I truly believe that there's a silver lining at this stage.
The final stage of triumph over tragedy. In Hallam, Mike Kronmeyer, 1011 News.
Sue Tai says a lot of people who lived in one part of Hallam were forced to move to different parts of the town, and that is another reason why the community has become stronger.
Helping spruce up Hallam, the National Arbor Day Foundation donated trees. The trees were planted throughout the community and in the town's park. The goal is simple: help restore beauty to the community and draw wildlife back to the area. The Arbor Day Foundation donated about 100 trees to Hallam.
The homes in Hallam were not the only rebuilding that needed to be done.
Businesses are also a part of the tight community. 11's Amanda McGill has more on how one by one businesses have reopened their doors.
Joe Polak has a brand new auto repair garage. It looks great, but he misses how things used to be.
A lot of people say, oh, you must really like this, and I do, but I really like the old building too. It had a lot of character. Like I said, it was built in 1907. And the other half of it was built in the 20s.
Polak spent a year in the early 90s getting the building in working condition and worked there ever since. When the tornado destroyed it last year, it wasn't long before he decided to rebuild.
I don't feel a town is a town without businesses. I mean, otherwise, I'm not really sure what you have
Joe wasn't alone.
Grain elevator came back first. It showed prosper and growth and that the town was going to come back.
The bank was up and running in December. It suffered some damage, but they were able to reconstruct it to look almost exactly as it did before the storm.
It was a great feeling for people. Our customers were glad to see us back open, and with the building looking almost the same as it did before the tornado, it's kind of a warm, familiar feeling for our customers.
Both town pubs turned their lights back on recently. That means all the businesses destroyed by the tornado reopened their doors. McDonald's newly named F4 Pub is the newest addition and the first place in town folks can buy a warm sandwich.
We would have certain open dates and they would come and go, and we'd say, well, when are you really going to be open? Because we can't even get a sandwich here, and now we can.
The pub's new name was, of course, inspired by the severity of the twister that went through town.
It was F4 tornado, so I wrote it on the building, and from that moment on, it became F4 Pub.
The pub's name and the new buildings are a reminder of what they lost. But the return to work is a sign that folks from Hallam are here to stay. In Hallam, Amanda McGill, 1011 News.
A week ago, the Hallam Community Center came tumbling down.
It was one of the last buildings standing. The Hallam Community Center was a common meeting place for residents of Hallam. The auditorium had been around for decades and was home to hundreds of basketball games to hundreds of dances. The community center was demolished after Hallam leaders decided starting fresh would be better than renovating the badly damaged auditorium. Well, as we've seen earlier, a lot of rebuilding has taken place here in Hallam.
But the work here is far from over. 1011's Melanie Bloom tells us about Hallam's list of future goals.
Much of Hallam still looks like a construction site. Stacks of lumber, heavy machinery, and mounds of dirt dot the landscape. But for Megan Galentine, that's good news.
Every day there's a new one or something's being done to someone's house, so it seems like every day things just start to get back to normal more.
Her family's home was damaged by the tornado. They'd been renting and moving around. Back in February, though, they moved into their new home.
Things started to get moved back in, and it started to feel like home again, you know, getting everything put back in its place.
Sometimes it can be frustrating. A lot of work needs to be done, and there's things that'll set you back.
Not everyone has opened their doors yet.
The roads and the streets we still need to do, and then we're still working on water, sewer restoration too, as people move back into town and we hook up their water.
Sidewalks still need to be repaired. The ball field needs a concession stand, but the fence is now going up. Street signs need to be installed or replaced, and many homes are still getting work too. Some still need sheds and porches, and many yards are still dirt. Many have left the outside work for last.
Most of it's just the landscaping outside. A lot of people, now that it's spring and getting into summer, a lot of people are working outside on the landscaping more.
While homes and businesses can be rebuilt, many Hallam residents say they're happy they have each other. Melanie Bloom, 1011 News.
There are 95 building permits out right now. Well, for many Hallam residents, last year's tornado has been a life-changing experience.
And those who were brave enough to move back into town say they've learned to overcome the hardships of this past year. 1011's Ashley Smith shows us some of the faces of those who've weathered the storm.
Rebuilding Hallam has been more than just hammering and laying bricks. For Hallam residents, it's been about rebuilding the foundations of relationships.
I've learned a lot about my family and my friends and how we've learned to regroup after something like this.
The stress level is just phenomenal. I just as soon go through a storm.
As the tornado swept through town, among the wreckage were homes lived in for years. The devastation drove many people away. But for those who did come back, it was because they believed in a new Hallam.
I decided this is where I wanted to live and stay. And this is where I will stay. You know, this is going to be home no matter what.
If you remember what the debris looked like, this town pulled together to bring this town back. That's what's great about the small towns, is because everybody knows everybody's situation, and most people are willing to help the other person.
We all have to work together and just keep going forward.
And as the town keeps moving forward, residents say it's slowly getting back to normal again.
It's getting back to normal. People are yelling at each other and complaining about their neighbors and It's kind of back to where it used to be. You know, yet we're all together.
And neighbors believe inside this small town lives one big family. In Hallam, Ashley Smith, 1011 News.
Some residents say although they have grown stronger from this incident, it will still take a long time before they can rest peacefully during a storm. It is amazing to see how far Hallam has come in a year's time.
The new homes and businesses are just a testament of the fortitude of these residents. But how can anyone forget the night of May 22nd, a night that will be etched in our minds forever?
It's been a rough night. We had 18 confirmed tornado sightings as of 8 o'clock.
I'm guessing that Hallam is just pretty much done. And then two sheriff broke down our door because they were running from the second tornado and they needed cover.
It's pretty black, pitch black. I was driving up into Hallam and got to Mom's house. No one was home. About 5 minutes later, everything hit. I jumped in the bathtub and I was there for a while.
We're going to allow access to the town. I want you to know that it is very devastating in there right now. I will tell you, it is not pretty and there's not a lot left.
Focus on keeping people safe, my family safe.
Are you scared to see what your house looks like?
No, I know what it looks like. It's material. It's replaceable.
This is probably one of the worst tornadoes that we've had in Lancaster County in a long, long time.
I cracked the basement door to see if it was done, and when I did, our garage went, and I saw the grain elevator going up in the air.
How would you describe what you saw when you went in there? I mean, how would you describe what everything looks like?
War zone.
This was an 81 Corvette. It wasn't much of an antique, but the 47 Mercury convertible was one of our pride joys, and it took a real beating.
We do have confirmation of one fatality, sadly and unfortunately, and I know they're doing the search now, and hopefully that's it. When you have this kind of damage, you know, you've got houses that were just taken.
You see the owners of the homes, you see their faces, and it's just shock as they, you know, as they look at their home that used to be this wonderful place. And
there will be need to help with the cleanup, the recovery, the rebuilding for a year and a half or longer. So it's best we don't forget about Hallam.
These people are from Lincoln. They just came out to help. Isn't that nice?
I guess if it's here, it's worth saving, huh?
There's no reason why we can't come out and help. That's what we're here for. We're put on earth to help our fellow people.
We're just going to put it all together again. Somehow we'll find a way to put it back together again.
Hallam, a year later. If the new homes, businesses, trees, and even residents are any sign of what's to come.
Imagine what this small Lancaster County town will look like a year from now. For Cerise Cole, I'm John Vanderford. Thanks for watching. Good night.